Hello everyone and welcome to this National Highways presentation as part of the Festival of Road Safety 2021, where we're going to be talking about driving and riding safely for work. My name's Simon Turner. I'm the campaign manager for Driving for Better Business, which is a National Highways program, and I'm going to give you more information on that in the second part of this presentation. But to kick off with, I'd like to introduce you to my colleague Mark Cartwright, who's the head of the National Highways Commercial Vehicle Incident Prevention Team, to talk to you more about some of the initiatives that he and his team are currently involved with.
Hello, my name is Mark Cartwright. I'm the team leader for the Commercial Vehicle Incident Prevention Team at National Highways. I've been asked to make a quick presentation, and thank you for the opportunity as part of our contribution to the Festival of Safety event, talking primarily about some of the projects which we're involved with as a team and the aim of the team. So here goes. As I say, I head up the Commercial Vehicle Incident Prevention Team at National Highways. Fundamentally, we have one role, there's one KPI we judged on as a team, which is the reduction of the KSI figures, killed and serious incident figures on our strategic route network. I've been with Highways around about 20 months now, having previously been at the Freight Transport Association for many years, where I developed and subsequently managed their Van Excellence programme. So I inherited a team who spent an awful lot of time working in the heavy commercial field, which we're still doing, of course. We've extended our focus more into the light commercial vehicle field, with a particular view as to influencing both driver and management and supervisory attitudes to the work-related road risk, which is part and parcel of their activities. Our ambition overall is to establish Highways as a trusted voice within the commercial vehicle industry sector. We think there's a significant opportunity to work with operators, to work with various suppliers to the industries, trade associations, both primary and sectorial trade press, to spread the message around work-related road risk, and importantly, some of the solutions which we're developing to support operators in improving standards. I thought it's probably a decent place to start to talk about certainly our most high-profile activity. This is a bit that gets the most media interest, the most column inches on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, and that's our Operation Tramline project. This is where we lend a number of modified HGV cabs to police forces around the country to support their engagement and enforcement activities. We've been running it about 5 years now, and it's identified over those 5 years over 20,000 incidences of unsafe behaviour, of unsafe driving, across all kinds of vehicles. And it's perhaps an opportunity to put to bed one of the great myths about tramline, which is we're out there to target other HGV drivers. We're not, is the honest answer. There's no getting away, of course, from the fact that these cabs put the police officers involved, 10 foot up in the air, so they've clearly got a very good vantage view as to what's going on across other HGV cabs. Of course they have. But the split is interesting. It's fairly consistent this across different operations, where around about 40% of the vehicles involved in the unsafe behaviours we observe are trucks, around about 30% of vans, and around about 30% of cars. Something that's always of interest to me is when we're involved with press activity around tramline, where the question you can guarantee that will be asked is, what's the funniest, most amusing, most unusual kind of cases that you've spotted? And we have our fair share of those. But the point we're always trying to make, and this is an absolutely perfect forum for this, is the great majority of the offences that we identify, the unsafe behaviours that we identify, are really boring. In fact, they're deadly boring, because it's stuff like mobile phone distraction. It's stuff like the failure to wear seat belts. Very simply sorted, very simple to remedy with the right kind of interventions across management and supervisory teams of the drivers involved. But they're just dead boring. If I am going to answer the question about the most amusing, interesting, peculiar things that we spotted, and we've got a good list of these. Two of my particular favourites was the truck driver who decided to take his parrot with him on a trip, with the inevitable consequences. The other one, which always struck a chord with me, was the driver we identified eating a fully plated lasagna complete with garlic bread with a knife and fork balanced on his lap whilst driving down the motorway at 56 miles an hour. That was full marks for table manners, I guess, but no marks for road safety. But the message really is it's a really valuable tool that we put out there to support police enforcement and engagement activity. Over 30% of the encounters result in words of advice being passed on to drivers rather than any form of prosecution. So it's fair. The reason I mention it first off is it leads quite neatly into a project which is taking up an awful lot of our resources at the moment, and rightly so, in the van space. When we pull truck drivers in as part of the tramline, more often than not, their response is along the lines of fair cop. When we pull van drivers in, and car drivers come to that, their normal response is, sorry, I didn't know. I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to put 3.5 ton worth of stuff in the back of my van. I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to be driving it at excess speed or with bald tyres, etc, etc, etc. So our Van Driver Toolkit project is very much about trying to get across the fact that, or take away the sorry I didn't know excuse across van drivers. It's a resource we're making freely available to anyone that wants it, whether that's operators, whether that's suppliers to the industry trade associations, or indeed road safety professionals such as yourself, to try and get the message across. So let me just quickly put up on the screen an idea of some of the things that we're doing with Van Driver Toolkit. We cover, I've got 33 on the slide. Since we released this to operators, we've had another 3 or 4 suggestions about other topics which we should be covering, so they'll be added to the portfolio fairly shortly. They cover all the obvious things you would expect them to cover, including stuff like vehicle roadworthiness. The format is very punchy, it's very straightforward. This is the good practice, is that these are the kind of things we're expecting you to do as a van driver and a van operator. These are the consequences of getting it wrong, these are the benefits of getting it right, and this is how you go about doing it. So if you take vehicle roadworthiness as a prerequisite, the card describes the importance of having a pre-use defect check regime and goes on to describe how to set that kind of thing up. All of these are completely free of charge. They're available in a number of formats. They will be included with Toolbox Talks against each of the topic cards, which will be available for operators or indeed anybody that finds them useful to use. They're written by experts from the industry, and importantly, we have a reference group of van operators that sits behind the scenes of a lot of our activity here at Highways, and they've been cross-referenced with them. We've had lots of useful advice and support in making the toolkit fit for purpose. So we're really pleased about that. On our website, vandrivertoolkit.co.uk, these cards are all available, all the resources are available, and in a number of different formats, as I've mentioned, including print-ready files and an app-friendly version for operators and indeed suppliers to embed within their various apps. And as I mentioned, just plug it again, these are all available at vandrivertoolkit.co.uk. We're moving forward. We've got a whole plan of things to add into the Van Driver Toolkit resources. I've already mentioned the Toolbox Talks, which are a matter of weeks away from being released. We're also shooting quite a number of talking head videos involving our traffic officers, just outlining from each of those topic cards. We are sure we can probably pull half a dozen bullet points out of there, really key important points that we want to get across. We'll be shooting these talking head videos, literally 6 to 8 seconds, outlining from a traffic officer each of those points and why it's important that drivers, managers and supervisors take them seriously. These again will be available FOC, and the reason we're doing it in that format is to make it easy for operators, road safety professionals, ourselves, to stitch those together into a form that works for the particular organisations that are being worked with. They lend themselves to social media inclusion in training packages, etc. So we're trying to come up with something that's really flexible, excuse me, for everybody involved to use. We're also developing a series of monthly blogs linked to the topics included in the toolkit that we've shown. And the idea is that we make these freely available again to anybody that wants them. Many organisations have driver newsletters, many suppliers have newsletters that they provide into their clients, and again, many of our colleagues in the road safety sector produce similar things. So the idea is that we just kind of preload it a little bit and try and make these things available to start the conversation, and again, have a consistent voice across the industries. The jewel in our crown, we're working on an e-learning package, which again will be freely available and will be compatible with any LMS system that organisations happen to have, and we're looking for a launch on this particular product around CV Show time 2022. So there's an awful lot of stuff going on. I hope you found that interesting. We're here to help and try and support the industries, and as I say, develop our role as a trusted voice. If you need more information, if you'd like to start have a conversation, if you'd like to give us any feedback, my contact details on the screen, mark.cartwright@highwaysengland.co.uk. Thank you for your time.
So welcome back. I'm Simon Turner. I'm the campaign manager for Driving for Better Business, which is a government-backed national highways program to help employers reduce work-related road risk and improve operational efficiency. So what is Driving for Better Business? Well, it's a program of online tools and resources that we've created that help employers understand what their work-related road risk is, assess how much of a risk that is within their business, see where they may have some management gaps, and will help them then fill those gaps. So we operate around a vision, which is a world where those who use the roads for work do so safely, efficiently, and sustainably. And our mission is to improve the levels of compliance for all those who drive or ride for work, by which we mean driving at a safe speed, turning up fit for work, so you're not impaired by drink or drugs, and you're not distracted by mobile phones or other in-car technology. And we do this by demonstrating the significant business benefits that come from managing work-related road risk more effectively. Quite often business owners, won't be particularly interested in road safety. It's often not top of their agenda. But by talking to them in a business way, with business messages about how improving work-related road risk can really improve the performance of their business, we're much more successful at getting that message across. So, what does that mean? What are those business benefits? Well, taken out from a selection from some of the businesses that are involved with our program, we've got the construction giant Amy. They've managed to reduce their collisions by 38%, and this was in a period of just 12 months. Gateshead Council have been involved for quite some time and have got their collisions down by 64%. We've got Tarmac, a relatively new company to us, who have got their collisions down by 48%. And McLaren Automotive, who got their collisions down by 50% as well. Now we've got many more businesses. They've all got their collisions down over varying periods of time, but by very significant amounts. And as a rule, they tend to take the view that we all share the roads together. So it's good practice for them to improve work-related road safety, to get their collisions down, because we're all sharing the roads. But they don't just do it because they're going to get collisions down. What they also know is that it makes good business sense, because there's a whole range of other benefits that they'll see from doing this. So if we look at Amy, yes, their collisions are down 38%, but they also managed to improve their fleet utilization by 30% as part of that program. So it's been hugely beneficial. And there are a number of other benefits for them as well, including much better fuel efficiency and a reduced carbon footprint. Same with Gateshead Council, massive collision reduction, but they've also reduced their fuel use by over 50,000 litres, which in today's money is around about 70, maybe even £75,000 worth of fuel per year. Tarmac, collisions down 48%. but they've also managed to improve the turnaround time of their vehicles in between jobs by 8%, which means not only are they having far fewer collisions, but they're also getting much more work completed during the day. And McLaren was an interesting case. Again, collisions down 50%. But complaints were down 100%. One of the catalysts for them starting their program was an increasing number of public complaints. They test their cars around the local area, which is Woking in Surrey, local area around the factory, and they started to see a noticeable rise in complaints about driving standards from the public. And within 12 months, they'd got those down to zero, and they stayed zero. At the time that case study was written, they'd been at zero for 6 months. So really startling improvements and business benefits from all of those companies, and indeed many more that you can read on the Driving for Better Business website. So just to put this into context, the number of casualties, injury collisions every year is around 40,000 a year. That's taken from the government statistics, which has a massive cost to the UK economy. One of the biggest costs to businesses is having those vehicles off the road while they're repaired. But those are just the reported injury collisions. There may be many more that go unreported, but there are certainly tens, if not hundreds of thousands more incidents that are non-injury incidents or damage only incidents, which again cause huge disruption to the businesses, but also put those drivers and members of the public at risk as well. So there's a massive problem there. But what actually are the risks of being involved in an injury collision while driving for work? Well, many of us, I'm sure, play the national lottery each week, but how many of us know the odds of winning the jackpot? If you look at the official website, the odds of winning the national lottery jackpot are a rather staggering 1 in 45 million. And yet still millions of us every week sit at home eagerly anticipating the draw, thinking that, you know, it just might be us this week. But how would those odds compare to being involved in an injury collision while driving for work? Well, it may surprise you to learn that there are approximately 20 million of us in the country who do drive for work in some form or another. That is made up of just under 500,000 heavy goods vehicles and trucks, probably around 4.5 million vans at the moment. There's just under 1 million company cars, but there are actually a quite staggering probably around 14 million of us who use our own vehicles for work in some form or another, whether that's being part of a sales team, using your own car and driving for work a lot, or whether you're just occasionally driving out to a client meeting or a training session. Those are all business journeys. So if we take that 20 million of us who drive for work and we divide that with the 40,000 injury collisions each year, we see the odds are just 1 in 500 that will be involved in an injury collision while driving for work. So to put that into context, if you run a fleet with 500 vehicles, statistically it's likely that one of those will have an injury collision during the year. Now, you know, millions of us drive for work, as I've just said, yet the odds are just 1 in 500. But we all think we're invincible, and none of us ever think that this year that's going to be me. So we really do need to get that into context and try and get businesses and business drivers to think about the risks and to manage that risk more sensibly. So Driving for Better Business is all about helping businesses identify those gaps and fill those gaps in so that they get the management right. Now, the campaign that we've created has just this month won one of the coveted Prince Michael International Road Safety Awards for the approach that we've taken. And we were particularly commended for the approach, the way the critical role employers have in delivering road safety by highlighting the business benefits that come from good management, and how the program was a good example of sharing good practice from those case studies that we've got from the businesses that are involved. So we're very proud of that award. And this essentially is the process that we've put in place, which has led to that award. We've created a 7-step program to better driver management, which any business can follow. We're starting to work with a number of strategic partners now, such as trade associations and media and business networks, to get their members into this program. And if you're, for instance, a road safety practitioner working locally, this is something that you can get businesses in your area to sign up to, and hopefully they'll be able to see the same kind of improvements that I showed you on one of the previous slides, reducing collisions, improving road safety locally, and improving the way they run their business. So, those steps involve a very simple step to start out with, which is to join up to our community. That gets you on our sort of newsletter. It gives you alerts to events and new resources that we've put out. Some of those resources help businesses to understand their responsibilities. Not everybody does, and there are some misconceptions about there. So we try and sort of slay the myths and get everybody understanding in the correct terms what their responsibilities are for managing work-related road risk. The circular bit in the middle I'm going to come back to, but that's how we help them assess where they are and improve. Demonstrating leadership is about getting the senior people in the business to take road risk really seriously and demonstrate that commitment by making a public statement of how important it is that they manage work-related road risk and how important the safety of their staff and other road users are. And the last step, which is once you can demonstrate good practice and the benefits that have come from that, share your story. Driving for Better Business is a platform that will help you do that. We've got many case studies and we share them on the website, through the newsletter, through our various social media channels as well, to inspire other businesses to start this journey as well. So to come back to the bit in the middle, I call this our circle of continuous improvement. And what that basically means is you need to start by evaluating where you are and whether there's room for improvement. If there is, you need to start strengthening the culture and putting policies and practices into place that will help you fill those management gaps. If you do that correctly and you're monitoring the right data, you'll be able to enhance the performance of the business and set a baseline and see exactly how much improvement those steps are making. And once you've done that and they've had a chance to bed in, you're back to evaluating practices again. So it becomes a circular process of improvement. Now, the tools we've created to help businesses do that start with an online benchmarking tool. That will help you understand whether there's any room for improvement and how much by benchmarking you against other businesses. We've then got a gap analysis, which will help identify where the gaps are. And if there are any significant gaps in the management of road risk, that links to our extensive resource library, which will then show the employer how they can fill those gaps effectively before we can go and benchmark again to see whether that's had any improvement. So as you can see, these all work together as a circular process of improvement: benchmarking, gap analysis, take action, and then back to benchmarking again. So I'll just quickly talk you through those 3 online tools. And these are tools that can be shared with any business locally, and they should be able to benefit from it. So the benchmarking, we've got 2 levels. The first is a quick calculator, works very much like an online mortgage calculator, for instance. You just plug in 4 basic metrics for the business's fleet, which any business should be able to lay their hands on this information. It's very basic information, and that will calculate for them their rate of incidents per million miles and their average cost per incident. And what it will then do is compare that result to the user average. We've had hundreds of businesses go through this benchmarking system, and so you can see the incident on the left. There's a green one which shows that in this instance we're slightly better than the average benchmark for incidents per million miles, but on the right you can see that while we might be having fewer incidents, they're actually more expensive. So the red box shows that our incidents are more expensive than the average. and see the web address underneath where anybody can go and try that quick calculator. If that shows there's some room for improvement, businesses might like to try a slightly deeper dive. So by putting some more details in, they can actually calculate a greater range of comparables and see how they compare with the user average. They can also separate those and do separate benchmarks by different vehicle type, depending on whether they operate cars or vans or trucks. But also on this one, not only will it compare to an all user average benchmark, but we've also put in a best practice benchmark. So while the business doing the benchmarking might be slightly better than average, they still might have some room to improve before they're at what we consider best practice. So that's a really good free tool to highlight whether or not there is room for improvement. If there is, you go on to our second tool, which is our gap analysis, our risk management gap analysis. So again, we've got two levels for this. The first is a high level, simple questions around each of those 10 headings to highlight whether there might be some gaps in the management of each of those 10 responsibilities. Typically, most businesses will find that they're not 100% confident in each of those 10 areas, in which case you can go to the deep dive gap analysis. Now, this is in two parts. There are 4 mandatory sections, one which talks around how the company is set up to manage risk and the company policies. And then we look at how it manages drivers, vehicles, and journeys individually. Now, there are then 4 additional sections. The mandatory sections will cover most businesses, but you might have some additional requirements where some of your staff might tow for work. They might be in specialist vehicles, motorcycles, or you might hire outsourced transport solutions in, which could be use of minibuses or taxis, that kind of thing. So we've got 4 optional sections for those risks. And the gap analysis is split up. There's about 45 questions if you do the mandatory sections, rising to 60 with the optional sections, but they're all separated into legal requirements and industry accepted good practice. So an example for that might be license checking would be considered as a legal requirement. So that's something everybody would be expected to do. But if you wanted to really go for good practice, you would fit all your van fleet, for instance, with telematics systems, so you can look more closely at driver behavior while they're out on the road. Now, that isn't a legally required activity, but it's something that pretty much all businesses that operate to a high level will do because it gives them the data they need to improve. Once you've completed the gap analysis, it will give you a full report linking each of those gaps to our online resource bank. Now that's laid out similar to this. It's a much longer page. We've got lots of different titles in there covering the key themes that we talked about before, whether it's evaluating procedures such as what should a driver policy include, or how do you communicate, how do you do a risk assessment, through to strengthening culture, improving performance, demonstrating leadership and good practice. So our case studies are in here, details around how to deal with mobile phone distraction or fatigue management. There's hundreds of resources in this bank around all of those areas. And when you're in there, it looks a bit like this. There's a whole range of different formats. So we've got videos, we've got downloadable PDFs, we've got quizzes, there are links to external resources and white papers and all sorts of stuff on there to help risk managers and business owners understand what their risks are. But one of the things we did notice early on, we were very conscious that we were telling business owners and risk managers that they had to communicate all this stuff to their drivers. And so what we've also now built into this resource bank is a tick box where you can segment the resources into those which are suitable for sharing with drivers as well. So for instance, on fatigue management, you can learn as a business manager about how to manage fatigue management, but there's then a number of resources that you can share with your drivers so that they can follow the policy and understand the challenge as well. Two of the resources we are particularly proud of. The first is a collaboration with the suicide prevention charity CALM, Campaign Against Living Miserably. That's actually a physical pack of resources that goes into vans, and we won a Fleet News award for that resource this year. And the second one is our Van Driver Toolkit, which we've recently released. Now, that is a series of 35 resources specifically to give to drivers, and it covers everything from licensing requirements, fitness to drive, so again, drink and drug driving, fatigue management, that kind of thing, vehicle checks and vehicle management, things around regulations regarding loading or towing, seasonal driving, all sorts of stuff. That again is, all of these packs are free to access, and you can register there. The Van Driver Toolkit contains PDFs, it contains HTML pages that can be viewed on a phone, there's videos, animations, and again, all of this is free to access. So either download it as a fleet manager and share it with your driver, or share the links with your business networks, your business contacts, so that they can access it as well. So hopefully that gives you an overview of what Driving for Better Business is. As I say, if you run a business or manage a business where some of the staff drive for work, these resources are all free for you to use and share. If you're a road safety professional, join us at Driving for Better Business and learn what these resources are. And again, you can access those and share them with businesses in your area. So that concludes the National Highways presentation as part of the Festival of Road Safety. I hope you found it interesting. Please go on to either the National Highways website or the Driving for Better Business website and get in touch with us through the website or through our social media. Thank you for listening.